What's up guys, my name is Josiah Martin and today you're hanging out with the Alaskan Outsider. In this video, I'm gonna be telling you guys how to take the absolute best photo possible with the new GoPro Hero 10. Now you may be wondering why I have this weird side-by-side GoPro mount. It's because I've been testing out the new DJI Action 2 camera today. If that interests you, feel free to find the link down in the description or somewhere up there where you can watch that video. But right now, what we're talking about is the photography mode on this GoPro Hero 10. So ultimately, to get the very best photo out of this camera, you need to have the right settings, you need to have good composition, and you also need to have a good edit. And that's what I'm gonna be showing you in this video. And make sure you stick around to the very end of the video where I'm gonna show a couple test photos from the iPhone 13 Pro Max with the Hero 10 and show you side by side which one looks better. Because ultimately, if you have a high-end smartphone in your pocket, do you really need to be taking photos with the GoPro? Well, stay tuned. But for now, I'm going to show you some settings that I like to use when I'm taking photos. So go ahead and turn the GoPro on, tap the screen, swipe to the right. You're now in photo mode. We're gonna look at the very bottom of the screen where it says photo, tap there, and click on the little pin icon. And now we're adjusting our settings. All right, so go ahead and scroll down here to the Pro Tune. What we're gonna have is our shutter and auto. Our EV comp is going to be 0. Now, if you are in a very bright situation and you want to turn the EV comp down, or if you're in a really bright situation where you want to bump that up, you can. That's where you would do it. If you touch and hold the screen, you can actually auto expose for that part of the screen. So you can touch the sky and focus on the highlights of the sky, or you can touch the shadows and focus on the shadows. And then if you tap the screen again, it'll actually lock that in place so you can be pointing out and back, and your exposure will remain the same. On to the next setting, we've got a white balance. I always leave that in auto. Our ISO minimum, we want at 100. Our ISO max, I keep at 400. Now, if you want, you can bump that up some, but the higher the ISO, the more grain and noise you'll introduce into your photo, and I avoid that best I can. This camera is just not meant for low light photos. So I'm not really going to be covering how to take bad low light photos. I'm trying to cover how to take the best photo possible using this camera. The next setting that we're looking at is sharpness. I put that all the way down to low because I don't like that super vivid GoPro look. If I want to put some of that clarity back into my image, I can do that later in post. And then the new color profile that came out on the GoPro Hero 10 is called Natural. On the previous model, all we had was flat and GoPro, but now we have natural, we have flat, and we have vibrant. So if you don't want to do very much editing with your pictures and you really like the vibrant color from the GoPro, then go ahead and have it in vibrant mode. But for me, I really like the flat mode because I'm going to be able to capture the most amount of information in my image and then bring out the colors that I want in Lightroom later when we get to how to edit this photo. All right, so those are the best settings, but let's talk about the capture mode. We can capture images in RAW, standard, HDR, as well as a super photo. The standard mode just captures a regular JPEG image, which you can edit later. The HDR mode actually captures multiple exposures and blends them together for areas where you might have a really bright sky and a really dark shadowy area like at the base of a mountain. And then super photo gives GoPro complete control to make all the best decisions for you in taking a photo. It's kind of like an HDR mode where it enhances the dark areas and it balances out the bright areas, and it uses GoPro's smart algorithms to take the very best image that it can. It's kind of like taking an iPhone picture where it does all the enhancements and makes it look like really good right out of camera. So if you're not wanting to do a lot of editing and you just want a beautiful, quick and easy photo to get on Instagram right away, then you might just want to keep it in super photo mode and let the cameras make the decisions for you. But if you're wanting to take the absolute best GoPro Hero 10 photo, which I think you do because you're watching this video, then I would recommend shooting in RAW mode because that's going to give you the most amount of information where you can edit later in post-processing. So now you've got the GoPro settings all locked and loaded to take a good photo, but now we need to talk about good composition. When you see a beautiful picture or a painting on the wall and you study it and it just has this wow factor and it really draws you in, it's probably because it has really good composition. If you can take any two things away from this video to improve your photography, it's to have good composition by utilizing the rule of thirds and to have leading lines in your image. If you don't know what the rule of thirds is, you can go look that up in a different video, but ultimately you divide the screen into 9 different quadrants and you're placing the main subject of your image on one of those third lines or at one of those intersecting points of the quadrants. Leading lines is just simply different aspects of your photos that have natural lines in it that guide your viewer's eyes up the image into what your main subject is. So let's say it's this gorgeous picture of a mountain with a stream wandering up the image towards the main focus, the mountain. Or here on the beach, there's a lot of driftwood, which is a lot of straight lines that if you position the camera appropriately, you can use those lines to push your viewer's eye deeper into the image. So just by stepping 2 feet to the left or to the right can make a big difference when composing your image. Well, now that you have some incredible photos on your GoPro, it's time to go back to the studio to edit these photos so I can show you my workflow of how I edit these photos in Adobe Lightroom. Now, if you want to have beautiful, awesome looking photos like you see here on this screen without having to do all the work of editing, what I've got for you is a GoPro Lightroom preset pack. I've made these preset packs just for you guys, and it does all the heavy lifting for you in the Lightroom application, so that way you can get a beautiful, quickly edited image and get on with your life. If you're interested in purchasing that preset pack at a very affordable price, I've got links down in the description where you can pick up your very own. All right, back in the studio, I'm gonna walk you guys through 2 different photos, my editing process from start to finish. So let's jump into the Lightroom software and get started. So I'm gonna be editing this one, and just so you can see the finished look, this is what I'm heading for. First things first, I want to remove this fisheye effect because you can see right here we've got a really nice curved tree that's supposed to be straight. So we're gonna jump down here to lens correction, enable profile correction, look here for GoPro. It's not a Fusion. Hero 7 Black is the best we can get. If this corrects it too much for you, you can always bring down the distortion. So if you want some of that fisheye look, you can. But for this picture, it's gonna look best at the normal 100 amount. So let's start doing some color correction. What I'm gonna do here is bring the highlights almost all the way down so we can really enhance that sky. Bring the shadows up quite a bit. I like bringing some whites in and blacks down just to enhance the contrast. And then to enhance the contrast even more, I'm gonna jump on the tone curve, bring the highlights up just a little bit and down a little bit. And then I actually go through all the way and enhance the tone curve on each and every one of these just a little bit. And it looks weird at first, but once you do the tone curve to all 3 colors, red, green, blue, then it actually turns out pretty good. So that just brings a little bit of the color out. I think the reds I maybe bumped up a little bit too much. So there, that's looking good. Now I really like punching in some clarity. It just brings a lot of life to this image. I'm gonna jump there, add somewhere in the range of 40 on the vibrance and just a tiny bit of saturation. And then one thing you always want to check on your photos is that your horizon is straight. You don't want any horizons that are tipped crazy. And you can see right here that the horizon is just ever so slightly off. So we're gonna rock that there. Minor correction, that helps. Now I'm really wanting to enhance the look that this sun is giving off, that it's actually putting a little bit more light into the image than it actually is. So I'm gonna make a little radial tool right here and set this effect to lighten. And I'm gonna angle it as such so that way you can see a little bit of extra light coming from this sun. So I'm gonna bump up the highlights and the whites a little bit. And now if I turn that on and off, it just enhances that part of the image a little bit to make it feel like that sun is just really shining a lot of light on the image. All right, now I'm gonna circle back. I think I brought the highlights down a little bit too much. I want some of those highlights back, but I do want that sky to still remain a little bit darker. So what I wanna do here is just bring the highlights a little bit down and the whites down and cool off that sky a little bit, just so we have a little bit more detail and information in that sky up there, because I like how the clouds are looking. And now taking a look at this image, we've come a long ways. It doesn't look like a fisheye lens anymore, and we've got some great colors in there. You can come all the way down to the calibration tab and play around down here a little bit. Sometimes I like adjusting the blue of the sky just a little bit, just to give it some character, add a little bit of personal flair to the image. I don't really have any specific way I do this other than just slide the bar back and forth to see how it affects the image, and then subtly bump it up a little bit. But if you turn off calibration and on, it's a really subtle difference, but I do like how the blue of the sky up here is cool, and there's a little bit more reds that pop up here on the sides of the tree. And speaking of trees, I'm looking down here at the bottom of this tree. It's just a little bit too bright. It takes a little bit too much of your eye off of the main focus of the image, which is the sun and these cool trees right up here. So I'm gonna actually put a little bit of a brush tool here. I'm gonna push O on the keyboard so I can see what I'm brushing, and then push O again. Then I'm just gonna bring the highlights down and the shadows down and the blacks down a little bit. I'll turn that off and on for you guys so you can see that I don't want the attention on this tree. So just by bringing the shadows down and the blacks down, it takes less of your attention and guides your eye into the image a little bit further. So there we have it, first photo down. There's the before and after, looking pretty awesome. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the second photo, but before I do, I'm gonna push the copy button down here and copy all these effects, because a lot of the things that I'm doing on the curve and the color adjustments and stuff like that, I like doing that for all my photos. So I'm gonna click on this next one and go ahead and say paste. And that way it already gives me a big leg up on my editing process, and I don't have to repeat all those things that I've just done. But I am looking at it and wanting to remove some of that GoPro profile correction, because I'm actually coming a lot farther out of the image. I'm just gonna bring that down to maybe 40, because it's not very noticeable that there's a fisheye effect in here, because you can't see the horizon very well. So I'm gonna, leave it at 40 right here. Now I'm gonna go over to the highlights and bring the highlights all the way down and bump up the exposure a little bit. I'm gonna come back here with my radial tool, and I'm gonna draw a line from the sun to the main subject of the image, which happens to be me. And I'm gonna bump up the highlights, the shadows, and the whites. So it's as if the sunlight is shining directly onto the subject here. And then I'm still not quite happy with how dark I am, so I'm gonna draw one more filter and just put it on the subject here, bumping up the shadows just a little bit. And now if we talk about that off and on, you can clearly see that we have a main subject here that we're wanting the viewer to notice this part of the image first. And from there, I'm gonna grab this graduated filter and drag it across the bottom of the screen. And I'm going to bring the highlights, shadows, and blacks all down. And I'm doing the exact same thing on the last image, is just taking interest away from the bottom of the image here. And that way it draws your eye up into the image a little bit better. So turn that off, and that's looking good. And now one last thing that I'm gonna do is play with the sky a little bit, still with this same graduated filter. Drag this here, and I've got a blue sky boost filter that I have, and I'm gonna bring that amount down so it's not so noticeable. But that way we have a really bright sky over here, and then we have a little bit darker of a sky here, and it just adds a little bit more dimension into this image here. So wow, I'm really happy with how this is looking. So that is one important reason of why you want to be shooting in RAW on the GoPro, so that way you have this much flexibility when you are editing in Lightroom, because I'm actually able to manipulate this photo quite a bit, bring the shadows way up or the shadows and highlights way down. So anyway, there's a lot you can do if you're shooting in RAW. Well guys, I hope you learned a little something about your GoPro Hero 10 and how to take the absolute best photo possible using this little device. And as promised, I was gonna show you a comparison photo between the Hero 10 and the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Now, I actually personally don't have that very expensive phone. My cousin came down for the weekend and we took out the two cameras, put them side by side, and so I'm gonna put these up on the screen for you so you can see which photo looks better. It is truly impressive what these tiny little cameras are able to produce. Now, if you punch in 300%, you can compare the image detail and see how it falls apart. So which one do you think looked better? Now, if I didn't own a video production business where from time to time, I like having this GoPro to get rough and dirty with it, throw it on the side of a car, and if it falls off, it falls off. And I'm just not really as willing to do that with a $1,200 phone and put it on the side of the car because I actually do want to get it back. But if I wasn't making those videos professionally and I just wanted to take beautiful photos, I'd be happy taking a photo from the iPhone 13 Pro Max because it does an incredible job. So with that, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something. If you did, please comment down below what your favorite tip was. And if you like this channel and appreciate that I'm not just telling all this information to you from behind a desk at a studio somewhere, then it would really help me out if you would like and subscribe to this video so I can keep making you more Alaskan adventure videos and tips and tricks to get the most out of your camera and video gear. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching and we'll see you next time. This is a very good contrast situation. We've got a dark, scary man in front of us and a really bright sky. So, how do these cameras compare in a high contrast situation? Whoa, that's slippery.
Remember when we were sliding down the